Hi, everybody. We're just going to give it about 30 seconds or so as other participants are rolling in. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Anna Pham, Director of Content here at Restaurants Canada, and thank you for joining us during Small Business Month. Of course, a time to recognize all operators and entrepreneurs who keep our communities fed and our economy moving. Of course, with rising costs and shifting guest expectations and supplier deadlines, I'm sure you all feel that payments can directly impact cash flow and stress levels as well. So that's why we partnered with Interac to explore practical solutions and real strategies so that you can put to work right away. Some housekeeping here before we begin. This session is being recorded, so it will be shared with you afterwards. Of course, the deck will be shared with you as well. Please use the Q&A box for questions, and we will address them at the end after the presentation. And then, of course, as always, you'll also receive free resources after the session that will also be sent with your recording, including Interac's SMB Starter Kit, and then also access to Interac's from $1 Hub as well. So without further ado, let's get started, and I will hand it over to the team at Interac.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this webinar, Getting Paid, Relief for Small Business Challenges, which is part of an ongoing, exciting partnership between Interac and Restaurants Canada. My name is Isabel Lee, and I am pleased to be your moderator today. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating the challenges of owning a small business. I'd like to start by introducing two of our friends from Interac, Sophie Lambert, Group Product Manager, Segment Expansion and Product Operations, and Sapana Selvachandran, Director of Solutions Engineering, Money Movement. Also joining us today are two small business owners who will be sharing their individual stories. They are Andrea Grand, co-founder of Barbette, and Dylan Gaday, CEO of Spicy Boys. So before we dive into today's discussion, let's just take a step back and look at how vital small businesses are. Small businesses are not only to our local communities, but for Canada's entire economy. So to help set the stage, I'd like to invite our colleagues from Interac to share some insights on the huge impact small businesses have across the country. Sophie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so really small businesses for debit specifically are our most important segment. We're the lowest cost card-based payment provider in Canada, and we hope that also makes you or us your most important payment network. And we've had a great response from some campaigns like Tap Canadian, where we encourage Canadians to use their debit card and support our Made in Canada for Canadian solution. And in a recent survey, we saw that 9 out of 10 Canadians said supporting a small business is important to them. So I think it's no surprise that they want to support small businesses, and we want to be there for you as well.
So Panna, how would you sum up the current landscape for small business owners?
Yeah, great. Hey, everyone. Hi, Isabel. Thanks so much for hosting this session today. Just want to say, I'll start off by saying it's a great pleasure being here today and speaking with all of you alongside my colleague Sophie and the business owners on our panel today. So Isabel, to answer your question, I'm going to start off by saying it's not a surprise to anyone, right? When I say that small, medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy, absolutely critical in driving innovation, job opportunities, and really just contributing to economic development. So Isabel, you asked about the landscape for small businesses. So, when we think about our SMB community, even though, we say that the foundation of the economy, the landscape for them is getting, it's tougher than ever before, right? Instability feels like the new norm, with just constant shifts and changes, from ongoing impacts of COVID, from businesses having to basically pivot and change the way they do business in an uncertain era. And really just looking at the way things are kind of shaping up now with tariffs and economic uncertainty. So with all that said, I would say that in short, the landscape is pretty tough. Again, instability is a new norm, but regardless of the size or the industry or the stage the SMB is at, they are grappling with day-to-day challenges, right? So limited time, pressure to grow, and also managing cash flow and the need for real-time funds. So when we think of that, we really at Interac, we think that payments shouldn't be the friction point for small business owners. We really want payments to be something that they're not worried about, so they can really focus on running and building on their business. I do want to share a quick stat with you, which found very interesting. Based on a survey that Interac had done, we'd found that 15% of Canadian entrepreneurs have high confidence when it comes to managing their finances. So as you can see, that number is fairly low. And we really believe here at Interac that we want to be able to give those small business owners the tools to not just survive, but really thrive. So it is, this is one of the most important things that we think are important to businesses. So with that in mind, I'm hopeful that we can help uncover some of those. Back to you, Isabel.
Thank you. And with that important context in mind, we're going to explore how getting paid and the hurdles that come with it impact small business owners. Turning now to our small business owners, can you tell us a bit about your business and how you've noticed, if any, shifts in payments on how customers want to pay? Andrea, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Grand. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Barbette. Barbette is a full-flavored sparkling beverage that I started with my sister back in 2021. It all kind of spurred from an experience she had. She has epilepsy. She cut out a few things from her diet, and drinking alcohol was one of those things. And in lack of being able to find some options that were kind of modern in taste and flavor and in branding, we very naively set out in a how hard could this be attitude to create a full flavored sparkling beverage that was modern enough to sit on your bar cart and dining room table and to elevate a solo moment. And really the key insight was this idea that my sister kept getting the question, why aren't you drinking? And we really wanted to turn that on its head and create a what are you drinking capacity and product. So launched December of 2021. We've now expanded. We're probably in close to 650 locations across Canada. But we very much started in the hospitality space and food service space. And that's where our brand built and has continued to build from that grassroots level. So very excited to be here talking about all of these things. And I think to the first question around the payments, I mean, obviously cash flow and access to capital is some of those harder growth points that you experience in varying degrees as you're growing. And so being able to have quicker access to cash through those payment opportunities is really important for us as we've kind of seen ourselves through these different growth trajectories.
Amazing. And Dylan, how about you?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got lost in.
Oh yeah, of course.
Sorry, Dylan.
We were just wondering if you can tell us a bit about your business and if you've noticed any shifts on how customers want to pay.
Yeah. So first off, thank you guys so much for having me on the panel. I appreciate Interac and Restaurants Canada reaching out. I'm Dylan Gaudette. I'm the owner of Spicy Boys. We're a small batch hot sauce company based out of Fredericton, New Brunswick. We focus on flavor forward hot sauces and believe heavily in creating culture around our brand. And within that culture, obviously, we have a relatively diverse group of customers, and Interac's really offered us a space for accessibility for those types of payments and quick access to cash flow for us. It also allows us to pop up at all sorts of events. So I don't own a restaurant. I own a food production business. So we do a lot of trade shows, a lot of specialty events. Originally, when we first started the business, we were doing markets, and having access to be able to take debit and credit payments is vital to the growth of a small business like ours.
Terrific. Thank you. So what would you say, in thinking about this, are some of your biggest pain points when it comes to payments? Andrea, I'll toss this one over to you first.
Sure. I mean, we're slightly coming out of it with the rotating strike plan that's been introduced by Canada Post. But I think if we talk about outside of Interac, some of the biggest pain points is access to the funds that take time and energy and time out of your day. So, I mean, the Canada Post has been disruptive in so many different ways as a small business, but one is receiving and sending checks. So, the inability to pay larger sums of money without incurring a wire transfer fee is obviously something that has impeded our accounts receivable and accounts payable process. And then to the point of the wire fees, I mean, you incur obviously a pretty hefty fee depending on what the size of the invoice is, or independent of what the size of the invoice is. And I think the biggest thing for me is we are a small team, we're a small business. It's just me really and one other person. And so every minute or hour that we take out of actually working on the business, not in the business, is lost kind of revenue opportunities for us, or growth. So, I mean, it might sound silly, but even taking the hour or two to drive and go to the bank and wait in line and process the whole wire component of it, and then obviously pay the fee on top of that, is not a convenient or a way, and it's not a scalable way, obviously, to make larger payments. So definitely Interac provides that opportunity for us to receive our funds immediately in our bank account as they're transferred over. And it provides obviously a really simple bookkeeping process for us to track and trial those payments back to the original source.
Oh, we love to hear that. And how do you manage paying your own vendors and suppliers or staff?
We do have a mix of things. I mean, obviously, in certain instances, as a small business, the payment terms and the process of which we are making payment are dictated by the larger players that we are ordering from. But in a lot of instances, I push towards Interac just because of the lack of fee associated with it, the ability that I have to make all of my payments from my home/office, hopefully office one day as we grow. And so I think the convenience of that and being able to pay our expense reports and everything through that is really mostly done through the Interac e-transfer process.
Great. Dylan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, my answer is going to be very similar to Andrea's in the sense that the best example we have right now is the Canada Post strike. So we're a food production company. We work with a lot of mom and pop grocery stores, and generally the mom and pop grocery stores are a little bit more old school in terms of how they're accepting payment and how they're giving payment. So we receive a lot of checks. We get a little bit of a hiccup with Canada Post. I mean, it's obviously it's sort of a new thing where Canada Post in the last 6 to 8 months has went on strike multiple times. And it's frustrating to have such large quantities of money and cash flow tied up under somebody else's thumb, whether it's money that we need right then or money that is allocated towards a future project. Interac really offers a platform for us to be able to accept payments from vendors that are up to date on that. And we're really working hard with the current vendors we have that lean a little bit more towards the old school check side to try to convert them into paying on Interac or paying via our accounting software, because it forces the growth in their business as well. I think it's great for them to get into that side of their finances. And I think that with receiving checks, it's not, basically what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to push a modernized version of payment for our vendors and for our retailers, and it makes it a lot easier for us to access the cash flow and get money into the bank quicker.
And I think as these vendors start to get more and more requests to receive payments by e-transfer, they'll get more accustomed with the idea of receiving payments. Hopefully that just becomes the snowball effect, and everybody starts moving transfers over to e-transfer, which makes just getting payments a lot easier.
Yeah, that's the goal for sure.
So now if we can turn over to our tools and solutions that can help businesses overcome their payment challenges. Sophie, can you talk a bit about the role of mobile payments and payment choice will play here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the ubiquity of you know, having a terminal that people can tap. I mean, we just sort of expect that everywhere now. And I think, you know, that experience kind of lines up with research we have where especially Gen Z often just prefer to leave their wallet at home, not even bring it with them. What I think is interesting sometimes is just between sort of some of the credit payment products versus debit. There's sort of this like preconceived notion that people want to get their points and maximize kind of their points earn. But like we see 72% of Canadians like want to be able to pay with debit. And I know that just a use case of one, oftentimes when I go to pay, you know, the person will sort of say debit, and then I'll say it's sometimes yes, or sometimes it's credit, but oftentimes debit is the first option. And so I think it's just about being able to accept those payments in any way that a customer wants to pay. So whether they want to tap their card or they want to tap their phone or their watch, just being able to accept that payment in any way, which also extends to online. Yeah, exactly. All of these things.
And I think maybe too, Sophie, if you can go into a bit about the benefits of Interac debit specifically for small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overarching benefit for small businesses is just the low cost, right? So we are the lowest cost card-based payment network. So that really is kind of the primary benefit. But pair that with sort of payment preferences and the fact that, you know, majority of Canadians do want debit to be available. I think it's on both sides from sort of the small business as well as the consumer. It's a preferred payment option.
And so, Panna, how about you? When it comes to the movement of transactions over to debit or Interac, I should say.
Yeah, great question, Isabel. Yeah, you know, I really wanted to just double down on the point that Dylan had mentioned earlier around the use of checks, right? Still pretty predominant. It's still pretty kind of it's used pretty, it's still used, but what we are seeing is a decline in the use of checks. And we've also found that about 74% of companies expect to phase out checks within the next 5 years, which is pretty, I mean, it's pretty interesting, that stat, right? Like we've seen that happening already, and we know that businesses are trying to find alternatives to that beloved check, right? It's almost, and people love it for many reasons, right, Dylan? I think you would also agree. But the thing is, it's inertia, right? It's habitual. You've always kind of used it. It works. It's traceable. It's secure. There's also that memo field in there, so it helps with the reconciliation, and you know that the money is getting deposited into the account. So, you know, at Interac, we're seeing e-transfer transactions on the rise. We've seen over 1 billion transactions last year, and that number just continues to grow across all of our segments. So I want to speak a little bit about e-transfer and how it can help facilitate payments to vendors, suppliers, and even, right? So I'll speak a little bit about the benefits. So benefits of e-transfer for business owners, I think it's easy to use, right? Millions of Canadians, they're already using e-transfer. It's familiar, it's trusted, and that really matters, right? And the second point is, right, and it is fairly simple to use. My mom uses it, so I mean, I think that should mean something. So take my word for it. But whether it's paying out tips, or if you know, if you're running a restaurant and you need a way to pay vendors at an event, or even, you know, your suppliers, it's the ability to have a simple method to have funds moved from your account to the other, much deposited instantly. And the other thing we know is that it's secure, right? So a couple of things with cash and checks is that, you know, because they're physical, it's oftentimes, you know, cash can either get stolen or lost, and checks, unfortunately, can also still get forged. So with e-transfer, you know, you have that security set measures that have that same as with the banks. So that's there to protect you, things like multi-factor authentication and passwords. So we know, we've established that it's fast, simple, secure. The other thing that I do want to mention is that most people surprisingly don't know this fact, but with Interac transfer for business, you can send and receive to $25,000 per transaction, which is significantly higher than a retail account. So oftentimes people will run into limits issues, and so with the businesses, you do have the ability with more room to play with. So there are lots of big benefits. We also have Interac transfer bulk, which is great for restaurant owners, people in the food industry. When you want to do multiple transactions in sort of one go, you're able to do up to multiple of the 10K transactions in one file upload, just making that sort of back end process a lot faster and smoother. So lots of great options as business owners in each transfer space. It's really about how can you really leverage the tools available to make it work for your business.
Thanks, Sapana. Why don't we hear from our panelists now about their own personal experiences about using these tools day to day? Can each of you share an example of how Interac Debit or Interac e-Transfer has made a difference in your daily operations? Andrea, I'll flyer this one over to you first.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I'll reiterate just a few of the points I think both Dylan and I have made at this point. It's the quicker access to cash, and I think the easeability of it flowing through your day. So not having to physically enter a building in order to get access to your funds, not having to wait the 5 to 7 days if you're doing a mobile check deposit. Or in the case of Canada Post, waiting for it to make its way through the mail, strike or no strike. So it is that immediate deposit that obviously in these earlier growth stages of a business, like our cash conversion cycles are so long. So anytime that you can drive even a week or 10 days or whatever it might be, improvement on getting access to capital can make a big difference in terms of when you are able to pay out your vendors or schedule in new production runs or pay out your employees' expenses, etc. So I think it's that quick, easy access to cash in what seems to be obviously a very seamless process with little to no effort on our side. Once that, to Dylan's point, once you kind of convert people over and you have that kind of cycle going.
Absolutely. And then it just frees up your time to get back to your actual business, right?
Yeah.
Dylan, how about you?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of cool examples for us is so we have a contract with Primaris, which is a leasing company for malls. So we have a lot of seasonal staff. So those staff receive tips, and they also want to get paid as quickly as possible. So for a lot of our seasonal staff, we use Interac e-Transfer for paychecks. So they don't have to wait for a direct deposit. They don't have to wonder if the software is going to have a hiccup. We immediately deposit their tips and their check directly into their account. Another really great thing with Interac is kind of, as I spoke to earlier, live events. So just offering accessibility to your customers when you're doing peer-to-peer events, making sure that they can tap their watch, tap their card, having confidence that, the payment's going to go through, knowing that if somebody has an alternative method of payment, they're able to access and use it. It encourages a lot of accessibility and inclusivity.
Great. And as the mother of a child who does seasonal work, I know they really appreciate that quick payment, the quick paycheck, because, they got to go and buy whatever they're looking to buy.
Exactly.
So beyond operations, there's another side to running a business, and that's the emotional realities. You're typically balancing a mountain of tasks, forcing yourself to become sort of a jack of all trades. How do you manage burnout or stress, especially when you're wearing so many hats? And maybe Dylan, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been running this business now for 4 years, and burnout and stress can be devastating to a small business owner, and finding ways to manage it is very key to success. So for us, I mean, it's involved a lot of building systems and protocol for staff to follow, accepting the fact that, you're only human and you're not able to be everywhere and do everything all at the same time. Find a team that you can trust. to help bear the weight of the journey and support them while your business grows. Be a resource for the people involved and accept the responsibility of the little monster that you've created, and know that the people that help you deserve praise, appreciation, and being paid on time. Most importantly, make sure, as advice to small business owners that may be on in the audience right now, it's finding time for yourself. Does work-life balance truly exist? I'm not really sure, but recognize the signs that you're not performing optimally, and optimal performance requires you to take time to recharge and take the time to get back into a place that you're able to perform at a high level. You can't draw water from a rock, and you need to be healthy and cognitive to perform at a high level.
I agree 100%. Water from a rock is a great analogy. How about you, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, Dylan, great answer all around there. I think that obviously echo a lot. I did actually recently have my own experience with what I would probably self-diagnose as my first case of burnout, which was earlier this winter, and it was not a nice experience. You very frequently can have decision fatigue and paralysis when you are working in this business, but decision paralysis was exactly what I felt, and just like that overwhelming nature. And so a lot of learning lessons out of that. I think that the sad part, obviously, of being an entrepreneur and in the startup environment when you're in these high growth stages is that burnout and like the emotional stress are somewhat realities of taking on this journey. And I think it's just trying to take and find ways to minimize the impact or minimize the extent of which it goes. So I think, to Dylan's point, recognizing the signs before they get out of hand. I think finding a team that you can trust, having mentors, people that you can call on to kind of help make decisions. I think some of the hardest things that happen on the day-to-day is that you're constantly problem solving, and there's such a lack of stability in the business that it is such an up and down kind of roller coaster, sometimes all within 1 hour. But having people that you can reach out to and talk to help you make those decisions that you are feeling stuck on, because sometimes making those simple decisions can help you kind of get out of that cycle. And then, yeah, finding time for yourself. Totally echo that point as well. It doesn't always have to be like this big life balance between work and your personal life. And it doesn't have to be as kind of drastic as like necessarily taking vacation, but I think just carving out small bouts of time for yourself in the day is really important. So for me, it's taking my dog for a walk in the morning and in the late afternoon, and that like half hour, 40 minutes obviously gives me the ability to kind of clear my mind. And generally my best thinking happens when I'm not actually at my computer. So I think just freeing yourself from like the boundaries that, and I think the reality is there's always going to be more that you think you can do. And so knowing kind of where those limits lay so that you're not actually straining yourself, which then produces poorer results.
And I know we have a variety of small business owners in the audience today, from experienced veterans as to newbies who are just looking to start out. If there's one piece of advice that you would like them to walk away with, what would that be, Dylan? And then over to you, Andrea.
Yeah. So for me, it's fall in love with the journey. None of us started businesses to be miserable, and understand that the process is going to include failure. And it's the ability to learn to love failing and know that failure is part of the recipe for success. So, kind of the old saying, your failures don't define you. They're actually going to be a part of the foundation of your success. It's where you're going to cut your teeth, become more resilient, and find out what brings you passion as an entrepreneur.
That's great. I think we should put that in writing somewhere. I would love to see that on a poster. How about you, Andrea?
Yeah, like I totally agree with Dylan. I think one of this, I saw someone post this recently, is that you're more defined sometimes by your no's than your yeses. And so I think just like redefining what you stand for obviously is a part of that journey, and sticking to it is important. But one thing I obviously learned early on is perfection can be the thief of actually launching something. So nothing will ever truly be perfect. Like everything is always kind of in iteration. You want customer feedback, you want perspective from the community. So don't be fearful of putting something out there that might not be in its complete final state. I think that is actually where there's a lot of beauty in molding something to be what it could be. And you might have limiting beliefs on what that might actually be. So put it out there, get feedback, and then iterate from there.
And just kind of just Andrea, I heard Andrea say, hearing no and being rejected. And I seen a video the other day that really resonated with me, which was, a lot of the times as a small business owner, you'll see somebody who's on a salary, and maybe their salary, let's just say it's $1,000 a week, and they're guaranteed their $1,000 a week, and it feels like that security, it would be nice sometimes. And sometimes it's 1,000 no's a week and then 1,000 no's next week. But then you come into week 3 and you get a yes, and your yes is, sometimes it's maybe it's small, but sometimes it's it's a $20,000 deal. And now you're looking at the person who is getting $1,000 a week, and were they guaranteed the $1,000 a week, the $4,000 a month? Of course. But I think that the value of no goes way up as you start to get those huge yeses. So, fall in love with hearing no sometimes.
Absolutely. So Pen and Sophie, I bet all of this sounds pretty familiar to you both.
Yeah, it sure does. I'll chime in, Sophie, if you don't mind. Andrea, like there was something that you said and it just kind of resonated with me because I saw this literally the other day, and it was around perfection, right? You were talking about like the need to constantly be perfect and do everything perfectly. And it was like, what was it? Perfection trumps progress or something like that. But like as a small business owner, like that is, you know, it is almost like that's your identity, right? Like you live and breathe this thing. And so you really want everything to be perfect. And yeah, like just hearing you both speak around just like everything that you're going through, but also just the emotional and sort of mental burden that it has on you is very interesting. I'm yeah, just kind of blown away just by how wonderful you guys are and just like the things that you're able to do as one person. But I will say, running a small business isn't just about numbers. And obviously you guys touched on that. It's also about your well-being, right? So well, some of the things that Interac is committed to doing is supporting you with not just payment solutions, although that is, something that we love, but we also have resources to help manage the emotional side of entrepreneurship. So for example, we're working with organizations like Conscious Economics to promote financial wellness. And so we have a joint mindfulness and money program, and it's all about personal well-being impacts and how that impacts financial decision making. And it's so important for small business owners, as we've discussed today. We also have our From $1 Hub, which offers free financial and digital literacy resources for entrepreneurs. And that's also a step-by-step guide to just getting a business off the ground. So some just additional resources which we think would be helpful for our SMB community. But overall, like, there are other resources, but I think it's important to sometimes, like, as you guys say, like you're so inundated with just the day-to-day tasks, and to maybe just take a step back and understand that like it's okay to, take a break. It's okay to, put you first. I think that's important to take a pause for sure.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say I love the saying no takeaway. As a people pleaser, it's hard for me to do that. So I always have to remember the importance of doing that to preserve our well-being. But maybe I'll just take a minute to talk about sort of some of the community-led organizations that Interac supports. So, we've invested more than 1.3 million in community-led organizations in 2024. And we partner with a number of industry associations and local chambers of commerce, and that can help you sort of access resources and grant opportunities. 380,000 Canadians have been empowered through our financial literacy program. So that's pretty great.
So let's recap the key takeaway from today's discussion. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to optimize your existing processes, there are tools and strategies that can help you get paid faster, manage your cash flow, and reduce the stress of running a business. If you go to the QR on the screen right now, you'll be directed to additional resources, including a free ebook about unlocking your business potential with Interac, an SMB kit and calculator, and a link to the From $1 resource hub. We're also going to share these out in the chat, and all participants will receive a follow-up email. And I think now we will open it up to questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. So the first question we have here is, what advice would you give a small business or restaurant owner who is looking to take the first step to move away from checks? And I think maybe this could be directed to Interact first.
Yeah, I can take that one. I would probably start off by asking yourself, what is it about the check? So I mentioned earlier that, we love the check so much as just generally small businesses. But what is it about the check that is holding you back from moving on to sort of other payment methods, right? So is it the fact that you want something sort of physical to hold, or is it the fact that there's additional memo field information? So I'd first think about, what is it about the check that's preventing sort of that understanding what's next, but also understanding that like you have other options, right? So with Interac e-transfer, you've got the ability to attach remittance information. So there is that part of that piece where you have traceability, you have the ability to include information that you can help reconcile your payments. The payments go through pretty much instantly. So there's a lot of benefits. So I would to someone who is looking to move off of checks, I would say, yeah, first think about what is your goal? How do you want to sort of, where do you want to get to on the payment side? Like if it's speed, definitely e-transfer. It's also in terms of like cost of payments. If you want to reduce the cost of payments, there's that as well. So just really understanding where you are like in your business and how you're looking to include the payments aspect of your business, and how you're looking to maximize how you spend your time and energy on payments. So really thinking about it holistically, and how you can kind of look at other avenues, more sort of modernized payment solutions, if you will, from what I'm quoting Dylan, but yes, more modernized payment solutions.
Amazing. Thank you. And just a quick question from my end. And, just kind of thinking about back in the day when I would manage restaurants, and you'd have a lot of front of house staff and there's a lot of training involved as well. Now that things that are a little more digital, I find that some people might find that it's also a vulnerable spot. Vulnerability in the sense of, potential for fraud. When your team members are on the floor accepting tap payments. Does Interact have any sort of training or resources that can be shared with frontline or front of house staff to kind of ease that scare?
I can take that one as well. And Sophie, if you want to add some more information, that's fine. Or Isabel, I don't know, were you going to say something? I saw you come off mute.
No, please go ahead. I think you're probably gonna, you and I probably say the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so we do have a lot of resources on our website, on all of our sort of like public facing information around, fraud prevention, and sort of, the messaging out to the public around the benefits, or just, all of the pieces around fraud, right? So I'm sure maybe Sophie has a different perspective on how that messaging gets out to the debit side, but even on the e-transfer side, like we've got information on our website, you're protected. It's sort of the same sort of security mechanism through your financial institution. So you are protected in that case. So a lot of that information can be found at interac.ca. And perhaps also some more information from that QR that we had populated just earlier. I think there's some resources there as well that people can leverage.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that QR code again. And then just a last question from myself as well. And this is for Dylan and Andrea. So excited to have, two suppliers on here as well. Of course, operators, have a list of suppliers that they deal with every single day. Restaurant operators. How do you both define a true partnership beyond just like a transactional buyer-supplier dynamic? dynamic? Like, can you think of some partnerships that you have right now with certain operators or restaurant owners that you feel as though really stand out and maybe that restaurant owners can learn from as well?
Yeah. So for me, it's all really about building relationships. So in terms of the retailers we work with, I have retailers that will email me to ask advice. I have retailers that'll email me to ask how my day is going. So it's really just about building those relationships and making sure that not only is your own business being taken care of, but that you're taking care of the business with your retailer as well. And offering them the resources to be successful, especially with your own product, offering them insight on how they can create a more inviting atmosphere in their grocery store for us, as an example, to not only funnel our products, but to funnel synergetic products. So for example, with us, we're a hot sauce company. So we like to we offer the advice to a lot of our retailers, put us near the taco section, put us near the meat, like kind of just offering them resources to find synergies in their store to help not only our business grow, but their business grow. And none of that happens without having a genuine relationship with your retailer.
Mhm. Yeah, totally echo that. I think taking the relationship out of the transactional, and it's not just like, what am I doing for you? What are you doing for me? And actually building true, real relationships is where kind of the magic happens. I mean, whether it's a brand partnership or a supplier partnership and relationship, at some point or another, favors are always being asked of and given. And I think without that baseline relationship, it's kind of harder for people to jump through hoops, or you on the counter side to jump through for them in order to get things done. And I think the reality is most people we're just all out here trying to do our best. And so building and having empathy or sympathy for the other side of the email or the phone call or the text message, and just trying to put yourself in their shoes and understand what they might be going through, and how either you could help, or if it's even outside of like something that you're obviously selling, how do you support them and help build up awareness? Because at the end of the day, it all is come back. It is all cyclical. So yeah, definitely the relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan and Andrea. And Andrea, I go to Standard Time all the time. And when they didn't have your drinks in their fridges, I was not happy about it. So I made a stink.
Thank you. Well, that's exactly, I mean, thank you very much. But also I think that's a relationship in and of itself, right? Like you've formed a relationship with our product at a location. And so then now it's on our side to make sure that we're holding up the distribution side and getting it in there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have made a stink if I didn't have a relationship with Standard Time. So, okay, great. I just want to give everybody on here maybe a couple more, like another minute or so to see if they have any other questions. And if you folks at all had anything last to say before we close out on this webinar.
I was just going to add to the original question around moving towards or moving away from checks. I mean, I think a really simple thing is to update your payment terms and move the order of which you prefer things to be paid in. Like we call right out that we prefer e-transfer payments. And that is like the first thing, and it's the email. And then like secondarily, we go down and go into the rest of it. I mean, I think that there's a reality that you do have to have multiple payment opportunities for people that you want to be paid, but just adjusting the structure and the priority level that you give it.
Yeah, and to that sentiment, yeah, like you never, I would say to small business owners, you never want to turn down a payment because somebody's not willing to e-transfer, but encouraging and explaining the ease of e-transfer and how I think at one point maybe there was a stigma around it that it felt unprofessional, but it's honestly the easiest method for both the vendor and the retailer.
Yeah, and of course, like you'd mentioned before, Dylan, operators are wearing so many hats. It goes without saying this adoption of modernizing digital tech. We, at Restaurants Canada, we do kind of reiterate it over and over again. We want folks to ease their processes, to take away admin burden, to make things a little more simplified and to not have to stress about an unpaid invoice that they, forgot about 2 weeks ago and they need to go and write a check and send it out. So I hope everybody on this webinar took away with that. So anyway, so thank you again to Interact and of course all the panelists as well for joining us. Of course, if you folks please scan this QR code, but if you didn't, we will make sure it will be sent in the follow-up email along with the recording and then also this deck as well. And of course, if you have any questions, we'll have emails on there so that you can contact Interact directly. And with that, everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.